Hello everyone, it's ArrowFyre here. Hope you've been enjoying the day's festivities. Now, this video is called I Am an Artist, and whilst that could sound a tad obnoxious, I actually got it as inspiration from Rohan of Rohan's Corner, and hopefully you got the reference from it.
I am an artist!
Now, as we know, there are some wonderful creative people in the Transformers universe, and some of the artistic designs that we have seen, or particularly sketching, drawing or painting of their beloved characters is wonderful, and some of it is just so breathtaking. I myself have even dabbled in with some drawing over many years, and drawing Transformers has been no exception. So today I want to show you some of the ones that I have done that I am most proud of, and how I have taken inspiration to doing them and the approaches I take now. So one great thing about Transformers is, of course, these are basically free mannequin models. Some of them with tremendous articulation. You can put them in any pose you really desire and use that as reference for your drawing. And you can get some of these in wonderful articulated poses that you can then sketch away to your heart's content whilst using points of the figure to reference what it is you're trying to capture on the paper. Of course, it goes without saying that a lot about drawing is self-confidence and making mistakes. And Lord knows I've made my own fair shares of mistakes when it comes to drawing. But it's with the mistakes and knowing what's worked and what hasn't worked that you just build up your own style and ultimately your own portfolio. So where I started off is I didn't particularly have the confidence to do some of these wonderful drawings that people have done. And I look at them and think, how can they do that and how come I'm not there? But what I would actually start off doing is I would copy some of the more memorable pictures and designs that I have seen in other comic books, using that as a way of testing out the waters and seeing how my interpretation of someone else's wonderful drawing would look. It is really just to be a homage of an already great design. Let me show you a couple that I'd started off doing. Now this, as you can just about see here, is a wonderful alternative art for the All Hail Megatron series done by Casey Collar, and he's done some wonderful design, but this is of course a homage in itself to a cover of The Killing Joke, the Batman graphic novel series. And this is of course Megatron holding a reflector rather than, say, Joker holding a camera. I saw this and thought, that is wonderful. The evil look on Megatron's face, the glint in his eye. I just have to copy that. I just have to give it a go for my own enjoyment, if nothing else. And this is what I came out with in the end. It's a pencil sketch version, which I kept with, and I was very pleased with it. I was very tempted to colour in the eye red, and I decided not to in the end. I did really enjoy doing it. I took a lot of time over it. I even went into the shading on the hands. I was really pleased with it because this was my first real attempt of copying something of a professional standard. And yeah, I actually ended up putting this on Twitter, tagged Casey to it as saying this is obviously a credit to the original design, this is something that I've done as just a fan interpretation, and he replied and said it was really good, and yeah, I was very touched by that. So yeah, that's how I first started. But with that I carried on and the confidence would start to build, so I thought I'd try something else, carrying on into the All Hail Optimus series, and I love this cover. I think it just looks so good. You see almost the desperation in Optimus's face. So I gave it a try, and I wasn't so sure how this one came out. I actually ended up going over this with some colouring pens in the end, and there is my interpretation. If I put them side by side, perhaps you can see better. And whilst I didn't get things absolutely right, and I've drawn Optimus many times, I could never get it totally how I would want. I want to get the shading on his head exactly right for the light hitting at different sides. So this is where I first went into using colouring pens, and you can actually see on the back it's almost as clear as it is from the front, would you believe. I ended up using a certain brand of pen called Winsor & Newton, and you can see them right here. I've actually got loads of them. You can find them in many good stationery stores. Found a load of them online, of course, and these gave me some really good definitions, really good colouring. There's a load of different colours to choose from. I would buy them just if I needed that little bit of colour that I needed. You can burn through them, I will say that much, because of course it's only like that much ink. But that's what I was using for things like this, and I'm very pleased how it came out. But then you get the age-old problem. Brush marks. And I found that fairly early on, particularly when you're trying to replicate things like solid backgrounds such as space or, you know, solid colours anywhere. You've got to brush it somewhere, you've got to go over it, and I was finding this was going to be a real issue. I was going over and over again. Where I sort of lost my patience with it a little bit is when I actually coloured in a drawing of Thunderclash, and I used green colour for his chest, his eagle print on the chest, and it was late at night, I wasn't really paying attention, I grabbed a pen and I grabbed the wrong colour, and I got this line that sticks out, much like if you just drew it on a shirt, and I was kicking myself because I felt I ruined it. And that's the only trouble with, of course, applying ink to a page. Once it's on there, it's kind of on there. But you learn from these mistakes, and I learned not to do that again. But with that, the confidence grew and grew, and I thought, what else can I try? I'll try something a bit larger. So I went on to an A3 style of drawing. I thought you've got a lot more of a canvas to work with. You can get some of these wonderful spreads that you would see in comic books, again, if you're doing copying of another image, and I think that would look great when you see these open double page features going on. I would love to do something like that. Now, a character that I've always been a fan of course, is Predaking. And one artwork of Predaking that I've always liked was his box art from the Power of the Primes toy release. So, of course, guess what I had to go at? I've got to say I was really pleased with how this came out. It is just a straight out copy of the box art, maybe a couple of tweaks here and there. I was very pleased with how I did the shading on his hand and how I was colouring it in towards the end. I wasn't entirely sure how the drawing was going to go. I'm not entirely certain I did Razor Claw all that well. Quite pleased with Ramhorn and Tantrum. But it came out really well, and the colour, as I was doing it, really came to life, and that just inspires you to keep going. You feel you're onto a winner. You think, yes, I'm really pleased how this is working. And yeah, I was very pleased how it came out. But adding the colour, getting the right colour for the Predacons, that's a tricky one. It took me a little bit of time to work it out, and then making sure I was getting the right shading here and there. But again, very pleased with it, considering I was taking this really off a toy printed image onto a cardboard box, applying it onto this, and really upscaling it somewhat onto an A3 piece of paper. I was very pleased how that came out, and this has probably been one of my more favourite pieces. But going back a little stage, I did try A3 once before, again finding a double page spread, which actually was from one of the Spotlight series. I believe it was Metroplex Spotlight, and it was Metroplex fighting off Six Shot, quite a famous scene, and an image I absolutely loved, and I decided to have a copy of myself. And again, this was just pencil sketch, excuse me. And I thought, again, this came out really well, took a lot of time, had to get a lot of shapes right, because of course Metroplex is very square, very symmetrical in a lot of places, and you have to make sure when you're doing a sort of a side-on, look-down angle, you are getting everything right. And again, I had a really good time doing it. I even did all the shading on his hand as the hand was coming towards. There's Six Shot flying away there, you can just see. But I was going to colour it in with the pens, but at this point I was very conscious that I didn't want to have, particularly when it comes to Metroplex's head, as we know is predominantly black, and I didn't want to do all the brush marks on it again, all the red stacks on the side of his head, to just again come out with brush marks everywhere. So I thought, what else could I do? And that's when I started to look at digital colouring. So after doing a bit of investigation, I found a program and an app called Clip Studio. You may have heard of it, and there is some great artistry into it. You can enter up into a payment plan. There will be other tools and other programs available as well, but this one really worked for me. What I would end up doing is I would take a PDF scan of this. This would have it onto an iPad, for example, can also be onto a computer, and you can also get, with Apple products, an Apple Pen. And this worked really, really well. Apple Pencil, to be exact. And with that, I found I could do almost anything I wanted. And the biggest bit of all is I didn't have to worry about making mistakes, because there's an undo button. And with that, you really got some wonderful end results, I found anyway. Brush marks were no longer a problem. Errors and touch-ups and highlights can be done at a moment's notice. Some of the stuff you can do on these programs, it just gives you that 100% accuracy that you would be tiptoeing around with some other drawings if you were doing them by hand. And of course here you can see is actually the Metroplex drawing that I did scanned in and coloured in digitally. Whilst I've not been entirely happy with it, I can go back over it any time that I fancy and say, no, I want to do a bit more work to that here and there. But I have a lot more confidence in colouring it digitally versus doing it by hand. I will say I see the argument. You will get people saying that's lazy and it's not quite part of the enjoyment and colouring by hand, but when you are kicking yourself for some of the mistakes you made, or when you get the inevitable palm print of ink smudge and smudged across the piece of paper, when those obstacles are removed from you, you're very thankful. What I'll say is as well, just remember you're doing this for your own enjoyment. I find it really therapeutic, really creative, gets the creative muscles going. Do find enjoyment in what you do. Don't make it stressful. It's there to be a tool and an activity to help you unwind. But also look at others, and it can be intimidating when you start comparing your artwork to a very talented artist. Of course it can, but you can also take inspiration and find out maybe something else that you would need to tweak to your own artistry skills, to making it a bit better, making the transition a bit smoother. As I said, I've tweeted the like of Casey Collar before, and he's responded back and given me some really helpful advice. He's a professional artist. Take that on board, and you will find, as you just keep going at it, yes, you will keep making mistakes, but you will find when you look back over some of the stuff that you've done months and years prior, you will see how far you've come, and you will take great enjoyment with that, I can assure you. But that's just my experience of it. I'd love to see some of your works if you are artistically minded. I'd love to see some of your drawings if you have Instagram pages or Twitter channels or whatever. Do put them up, do put links in the comments below. I would love to take a look. But thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.